So today we have a 2002 Chevy Silverado 2500 HD 6.6 Duramax, and the complaint is the battery warning light is on in the dash. Let's see if we can get in here. But according to the voltmeter over there, it shows that it's charging. Now I believe he's changed the alternator, and I'm pretty sure this problem occurred after replacing the alternator, so we're going to scan it for codes. So I had to manually ID this vehicle because it's too old for the snap-on scan tool to automatically ID it. You go into the powertrain. It does have an Allison 5-speed, federal emissions. We go into engine, codes, display codes. P0622, generator field control circuit problem. Let's have a look at what causes that code. I'm going to shut the truck off so it's not making so much noise. So we're going to go into troubleshoot it here and see what P0622 says. P06. It's not there. Okay, well, we'll load Identifix. So we're in all data here. We'll have a look at what P0622 says it's caused by. Uses generator field duty cycle signal circuit to monitor the duty cycle of the generator. Field duty cycle signal circuit connects to the high side of the field winding in the generator. A pulse width modulated high side driver and the voltage regulator turns the field winding on and off. The ECM uses pulse width modulated signal input to determine the generator load on the engine. This allows the ECM to adjust the idle speed to compensate for high electrical loads. Monitors the state of generator field duty cycle when the key is in the run. So ECM monitors a PCM field pulse width modulated signal using the key on test and run test. During the test, ECM detects an out of range pulse width modulated signal. DTC 622 will set. Conditions for setting. During the ignition on test, the ECM detects a pulse width modulated signal of between 10 and 40% for more than 6 seconds. During the run test, the ECM detects a pulse width modulated signal of less than 5%. So obviously it's still charging, because he's been running like this for several days, and according to the voltmeter in the dash, it's still charging. So I'm going to read through this and have a summarize it. So as I said, it is charging 14.2 volts, but there must be a problem with the wiring. I suspect it's got the wrong voltage regulator in the alternator. Let's see if there's an easy way of identifying that. So the diagnostic chart here says to monitor the generator F terminal in the data list. It should say between 5 and 95%. Well, if I go in the engine data list, there is no generator F terminal. There's generator L terminal, and it's on right now, but there is no F terminal. So either Snap-on's missing that data parameter, which I believe is the case. I'm going to try IDing this as a 2003. So I tried IDing this as a 2003 and a 4. And none of the data lists have the status of the generator F terminal, just the L terminal. The generator L terminal is on. So I'm going to try a different scanner. So using this MaxiSys, I'm in engine data 2. It's not in that list. Let's go back to engine data 1. .3 volts, 14.3 volts, generator L terminal, but no generator F terminal. Well, that's 2 scan tools that don't display it. So I've resurrected this Tech 2 scan tool, and I'm going through the data list in it. There's 64 data parameters in the data list, engine data 1, and generator F terminal is not one of them. Here in So there's generator L terminal signal. Generator F terminal is not there. So let's check the engine data list too and see if it's in there. But I predict it won't be. These are fuel injector commands. There's only 20 and balance rates. So it's not in that list either. So obviously this troubleshooting chart has been updated. There has to be an update to it. So at the alternator, with it running, on the brown wire at the alternator I have 8.8 volts, and with this unplugged it stops charging, and I have battery voltage on the brown wire. That's supposed to be the light control wire. The other wire has no voltage on it whatsoever. I feel strongly that it has either a defective voltage regulator in it or a wrong voltage regulator in the alternator. I got to find out if this problem occurred right after replacing the alternator or if it was there pre-existing to replacing the alternator. So here's a case in Identifix that I found. Brought in not charging, replaced the alternator, now it's charging all the time at maximum output. Well, I don't think it's maximum, 14.4. The alternator indicator on the instrument panel is on. Turn the key on, engine off, observe the MIL, alternator indicators on they should be on. They do work. Disconnect the regulator connector, measure voltage on the connector. From the PCM on the brown wire, should be no voltage present. Start and run the engine, recheck the voltage on the brown wire, should be approximately 10.5. That's exactly what I have. If the voltage is present, replace the defective alternator. Modify alternator harness per GM TSB. Let's see what that says. So that bulletin just was generic information about testing circuits. Here's an updated troubleshooting chart for the P0622 on a diesel engine. It no longer says to check the generator field duty cycle. It says test the generator field duty cycle signal for the following and open a short to ground, short to voltage, and leaves it up to you. Refer to circuit testing. So basically checking that wire, and we'll look at the indicator circuit here. With a single, without dual, right there. Checking that output wire, that generator field duty cycle wire, for continuity to the alternator, pin C, connector 2, pin 52 for a short to ground and a short to voltage, and potential open. So we'll check that wire just to be safe. Trying to figure out which one of these two connectors at the ECM is connector 2. And here's a picture of the ECM, and it says ECM and ECM connectors. Thank you. Have a nice day. Very useful. So here it says connector 2 is the clear one, CLR. Let's go back and double check connector 1. I think that one's white. No, it says blue. Now you can't see this unless you undo the connectors because they've got an aluminum cover over them. So I got the one off on the closest to the left front fender, and I don't think it's that color. I'll have another look. So it turns out the one closest to the left front fender is connector 2 because it is clear. The body of the connector, this part of the connector, once you get it off and look at it, is clear. So we're looking for pin number 52, which is the generator field duty cycle wire. Circuit number 23, 52, so 41, I've got to count up. So I've got the ohm meter connected between 52 at connector 2 of the PCM, I'll show you that in a second, and the pin in the alternator connector, and I'm showing 0 ohms or 1 ohm resistance, so they've got continuity on that wire. I'm going to check for a potential short to ground by removing the test lead from pin 52 and putting the test lead on ground now. And it should show infinite, but this is only at 400 ohms, so I'm going to change this now to 400K, and it shows infinite. So I don't have a short to ground on that wire, and I don't have an open in that wire. I should check for a short between other wires, so I'm going to do that. just basically watch the ohm meter while I go between the terminal on the alternator and every other pin in the connector. I think that's going to be okay though. So that clear connector is connector 2, and pin 52, you start at 41 up here in this corner and count down, somewhere's down around here. As I said, I'm going to check continuity between the alternator pin and every other terminal in the connector. So between the alternator connector terminal and every other pin in this ECM connector, there is no continuity except pin 52, which is that pin that I'm on right now. Now I'm using a proper terminal test so that you don't compromise the terminals in the connector. Don't use a paper clip or a needle. Make sure you use the right size terminal. So when I pulled the connector off, that seal came with it. So make sure that seal goes back in and put dielectric grease around the perimeter of the seal. Wouldn't hurt to put some dielectric grease on the terminals as well. So remove the alternator, and when I removed it I noticed that this third pin down here in the regulator connector was pushed off to the side. I managed to straighten it out, and I think that's all that was wrong with it. The pin was outside of the connector over here. So I'm going to put it back on again, and hopefully that's going to fix the problem. Well, it appears to be charging now and no more indicator light on the dash. Sitting at 14.5 volts. We'll see if the code clears. We're going to attempt to clear the codes. And we'll go back in and see if they're back again. And it's gone. So that was all that was wrong with it. That pin was bent over inside the connector, and I didn't see that the first time I looked at it.